If I didn't make that clear from before, yeah, I think I don't agree with the Joe Choi fellow, and yeah, I think he's doing way too much, and I do think he's exerting his power there with a smile on his face, or it can come off, not manipulative. It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we'll be talking about astrology, of course, co-parenting, and what's realistic based on your chart, and just overall how we should approach this thing in this day and age. So let's get into it. So this video was inspired by someone I saw on The Breakfast Club. If I'm correct, I believe his name is Joe Koy. He's a comedian. He's also a fellow Gemini. So shout out all my Geminis. And I attached the clip below in the comments. Check it out and see what he says. I will put it in the video, but whenever I do, I get copyright flags. So it's just best if I do it this way. Upon checking out the clip, you'll see that he said he brought his ex-wife and baby mom a house across the street from him. So the first part that we're going to talk about within healthy dynamics and just navigating relationships in this day and age is being able to recognize different types of manipulation. And of course, I had to do a quick check on Mr. Choi's energy. And he is, like I said, fellow Gemini. And depending on his actual time of birth, he's either a late degree Virgo moon conjunct Pluto or an early degree Libra moon coming into conjunction with Uranus. So those two energies and planets, particularly with the moon, speaks so much to what we're talking about right here. Home dynamics, domestic dynamics, Uranus leading towards freedom, the unconventional. And then there's Pluto. Pluto is the inner psyche of us all, our psychological movements, desires, how we interact with each other. And one of the things included in that is manipulation. So when a person is plutonic, regardless of aspects, they have the capacity for manipulative moves. Now, when we look at their aspects, the aspects can make them a victim of manipulation, or let's go with the idea that they have, let's say, a positive aspect, Venus trine Pluto. This would be someone who may do manipulative things, but can mask it with good intentions. Or on another level, if we're being honest, the Plutonian person may themselves have so much power in some way, this could be a variety of ways, in which the other person compromises or settles for the manipulation. Okay. And I love these conversations because if we're really looking at things in an objective way, and anyone's been in a scenario where they may have been manipulated, when you can take ownership of and seeing how you let yourself be manipulated, that's when you really make progress here and can learn. But if you approach things in the sense of victimhood, we don't really ever get anyway, and the potential to be manipulated can arise again and again. So staying with Pluto here and manipulation, like I said, it's power. And if we're really real, the part of the reason I'm making this is because we're all not the same. We're all in different situations, particularly like financially. And if we're being honest, that dictates a lot. Nick Cannon has opened the floodgates. If we're being honest, he's on a very subconscious level exposed something that we've all known, but he's shown the truth and reality of it. And the simple way of saying money talks, power. There are people willing to settle for particular dynamics based on how they can benefit. And if we're looking at it from, a sexual standpoint, that's the basis of survival in life, right? Okay. So the fact of the matter is that in this day and age, depending on who you're dealing with, you will have to take an honest assessment of how powerful that person is. I can speak from experience as an astrologer, and I'm grateful for to have been able to learn. Anyone who's been a partner or married or parenting with a Scorpio, once again, Pluto type person, will tell you that they've experienced particular type of manipulative actions inside the partnership and therefore after. Now, they've also said that in certain instances, there's really nothing I can do about this particular thing, or at the moment there wasn't. And going deeper into the psychology of Scorpio and power plays, it's everyone to some extent in a partnership looks for an advantage, if we're being honest. Okay, so Pluto and Scorpio very much so represent that. So it comes back to saying that um, you'll have to really evaluate who you're dealing with. And it's not to say like you're just defeated, but sometimes having this understanding of like, all right, and they have this advantage in this particular realm. You can either, like I said, compromise to the manipulation and just benefit in how you feel you can benefit from it, or you the beauty of life and just your defense is your boundaries. Okay, so if you're dealing with someone like that, it boils down to you compromise into their manipulation because they're going to continue to exert their power or manipulative tactics, or you just make your boundary so strong that they could throw the rocks, but it can't reach you. This is my perspective. Like I said, I would love to hear yours. So bringing this back and applying it towards one's chart as an astrologer, based on experience and even just my own perspective and wisdom of life, I don't believe that a a Plutonian person can have that type of arrangement in which we're talking about. I don't. It doesn't go together. And furthermore, when this does occur, what I'm trying to highlight to you that it's more of it's a result of the Plutonian person's power. So the other person, you may just assume, okay, they're both on the same page, where the person just really probably compromised because they felt like they were uh, defeated in some way, just to keep it light. All right. So another example, God rest the dead. Uh, Diddy's baby mother, Kim Porter. He's known her, or as far as I know, he met her around the same time he met his other baby mother. Okay, and Kim Porter, was there throughout J Lo, there throughout Cassie, and whoever else was there until her unfortunate passing. Diddy, Scorpio, big Libra energy too. All right, so this is a great talk. I enjoy talking about these things because I'm gonna reiterate it again. We're all different. And those are one of the things, arrangements like this are for people who have achieved these things or have the power to exert, right? Just imagine how you would be looking at Joe Schmo, right? Who's the average dude. Let's say maybe he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He's like, we should just be in an open relationship, right? I'll live with her, or maybe a polyamorous thing or polygamous thing, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, I'll live here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'll live with you. These things can go on, right? Now, on the other side of so what is supported? We go back to Uranus here. Your Uranian people, particularly in the realms of partnerships, these are different type of people from the rest of the zodiac here. Everyone here, we all know that there is something called a swinger's lifestyle. And depending on, how your energy is set up, or particularly the Virgo in your chart, you're like, nah, I'm good, never. I'm open minded, but that ain't for me, right? But there are different strokes for different folks. So, based on things like swinging lifestyle and just openness, Uranus here in prominent positions. I consider a person Uranian very much so like they be Plutonian when this planet here is conjunct a personal planet placed within the angles of the chart. This energy will be a large part of your life and your expression in some way. Okay. And then we have the aspects, which is, let's say your sun is trine Uranus or Venus square Uranus. These are really going to create scenarios in which, from what I've seen, I need to kind of embrace it or understand that it doesn't have to be traditional. You are not traditional. So it could be a form of shadow work there and accepting what works for you and what doesn't. But the potential there in those prominent positions, let's say Uranus here in the fourth with maybe some an 11th house or prominent Aquarius. And a lot of times in the really uh, the people involved in polyamory, um, I've seen the North Node, Aquarius and Leo, and particularly Mars as a planet be very prominent, right? Right on the descendant. A lot of Leo risings or Aquarius risings. These are people who can develop the mind to be open towards these types of things. But if I were to impress my own particular opinion in general, just a understanding of life and human nature, this thing isn't for everybody. And at a particular level of development, let's say you're really focused on spiritual development and you have a strong Uranus, that doesn't mean you should be sleeping with multiple people or having these unconventional situations. What it could mean is that you sacrifice those things to attune more towards your own higher genius. Okay, the topic at hand, I would say, um, if considering or like meeting someone, see and getting their story, seeing where they're coming from, have they been married and where they are in life, all these things, matter, and applying your astrological vision to them can give you greater clarity because this is my experiences from teaching. Many people, unless you really take your time with astrology, do develop these stereotypes. So if you feel like you understand stuff about the planets from a logical level, you may see someone with Uranus in their seventh and think that they're not a relationship oriented person or that they're naturally detached, but that may not necessarily be the case. For a person like that, part of their transcendence in this life and tapping into the higher vibrations of that is learning more detachment and partnerships. So that this might be someone who is married for 15 years. You meet them after this and they have this whole life from before them. This is like a person who, like I said, may be meant to try to figure out how to balance this. But it brings us back once again where I think the gentleman is doing too much. I don't think that is ever really healthy. And just listening to how we explain those things, yeah, I think boundaries, and we know this because of Saturn exalted in Libra, boundaries are just the best thing within relationships. So if I didn't make that clear from before, yeah, I think I don't agree with the Joe Koy fellow, and yeah, I think he's doing way too much, and I do think he's exerting his power there. And I brought up everything I brought up before because I think he's doing it with with a smile on his face, or it can come off, not manipulative. Okay, so I don't think it. I think co-parenting and healthy relationships are possible, but I don't think that realistically that's ever going to be healthy having a dynamic like that. it is manipulative and some Pluto shit. So I enjoy talking about this just so we can be aware and just know that you being involved here in spirituality is to be able to use the wisdom to navigate situations like this in life where you don't feel powerless, but you feel aware. You're able to actually evaluate all options and things of that nature. Okay. Before we end, I'll just say, like, when it comes to the next part of this, would also be assessing your eighth house, a person's 12th house. Um, I give a quick example. Spiritually evolved 12th and 8th house person can very well, outside of co-parenting, like have like that can be a seed for multiple wives or partners, depending on just how the energy is set up. Because remember, this is in the DNA. We were not always monogamous and all of that. So for some people, that potentiality is there. Doesn't mean that just because the potential's there, that is what they should do. It's all a matter of what's going on in the individual story. What do they need? Okay. But say you have that 12th and 8th house person who isn't evolved. Because when I say like spiritually, you don't have to like necessarily be actively like playing a spiritual role to be considered spiritual. But let's just say a person is low vibrational, but they have this potentiality. This, in terms of manipulation, let's say Pluto's involved here. This is someone who can manipulate their way into having some type of scenario like that, but way over their head and not actually worthy of it, not able to sustain it or use the real benefit. And in the long run, what happens? You get drained. You get drained. And like I said, this is man or woman. Always when you think about topics like this, realize there's the country you live in, there's the region you live in, and there's a big ass world out there where there's a lot going on. Okay. So this is my perspective on this topic of co-parenting, boundaries, Pluto, Uranus. Feel free to chime in. I really want to know. If you need a reading, check out my website, GeminiBrown.com. Check out my book, Astrology of the Matrix. Check out my Patreon. Till next time, peace.